somehow we have come to accept, rather sadly, that people can sit down and think things will change. Even if they don't like the status quo, it is assumed that one day, it will be. And that one day, nobody knows when it ever comes. And indeed, without action being taken, that one day will never come. And so, being a voice of change in society, it's a very important thing that everybody has to be concerned about. And you don't have to have a very big name. You don't have to have a lot of money. You don't have to have so much clout or be in the best of moods or become the biggest name on media, social media or traditional media, to cause any change. It is the little things that we do in society that make the most difference. And so I'm very happy to be talking about being a voice of change in one's community today. Now, why is it necessary to look for change? Some people say that change is the only constant thing in society, that change happens. But change is made to happen, in my opinion. Change doesn't just happen. It is made to happen by various clash of ideas, by the interaction of forces, by the interactions between people and others. So, without people doing anything, change doesn't necessarily happen. And when I talk about change, I mean change for the better. Because change can also be for the worse. And this is where change agents are different from people who just want change. Change agents are basically dreamers. People who dream of a better tomorrow. People who dream of a better future. People who don't want what is happening to continue. People who want different things to happen. Things to happen in a different way, but also in a better way. People who think that what is now happening is not supposed to be happening, and that we have the capacity and the will to make things happen in a better way. Change agents are basically people who dream of a better society, of a society that can give more to its people, of a society that can help the people to harness their potentials, of a society that has the capacity to give human beings the opportunity to live fulfilled lives and die as successful human beings. Change agents are people who dream of things that don't just happen to humans, but things that human beings have the capacity to make happen. So, for instance, if somebody is trying to make change in our agriculture, where we sit down and allow rain to happen to us. Somebody sits down and feels that he has to make change so that we can make rain work for us instead of rain just happening to us in our farming. Then he introduces an innovation that helps poor farmers in my village to farm all year round and get the kind of yield that years before they could only imagine. This is change, but it is positive change. If we are looking at change, we have to become people who dream. And it doesn't matter if your dream is ridiculed at first, or is seen as unrealistic at first, or is seen as just being a wet dream at first. Because trust me, everything that we have right now, everything, the mobile phone, the aeroplane, the clothes that we are wearing, everything started as a dream. And so without dreams, without the boldest of dreams, there is nothing that can ever change for the better. So social agents are nothing but dreamers. And I feel like we need to have a system that enables dreams. We need to have a system that encourages people to dream. For now, I think we don't have that kind of system. So it is possible to go into our biggest factories of ideation, our higher learning institutions, which are supposed to be breeding ideas, which are supposed to be breeding grounds for innovation, to find the most appalling of conditions. There's no water, there is no electricity, there is absolutely nothing that inspires people to look to a bigger ideal, to dream big. People leave their communities where they do not have potable water, and they come to the university with high aspirations, with high dreams, to live in a community of intellectuals, a community of innovators, a community where they can have the opportunity to nurture their minds. But they come and live in that community where they are forced to go to the loo without water to flush. They are forced to take buckets and walk several miles to go and get water. They are forced to sleep, on a very small student mattress because there is no accommodation for young people. They are forced to contend with the most appalling of conditions. Somehow we think that teaching people in classroom is the only way we change people's thinking, or we help people to nurture their thinking. No. The conditions that people live in, the environment, affect the way people dream. And so it is important that the nurtures of the institutions and the agencies that are supposed to be nurturing the kind of dreams that we want to be able to cause change in society, we have to dream up those institutions to become the kind of nurturers or nurturers of dreams that we want. But as a change agent, being a voice of social change in society is not only about not being satisfied with the status quo, but also having a vision, a thought, or an idea of where else could be better. And it is not enough to just hate the status quo. You also have to love what you dream about. You have to think about the best way that things can be better. And the love for a better future must be far greater than the hate for the status quo. Because this is important in a way that you do not concentrate on the hate so much and wish that anything else is welcome. Because if you hate the status quo so much that you just want anything at all, you risk having a change that will set you back several miles, even worse than what you have now. So you need to be able to dream up. We need to be able to dream up the kind of society. If we don't want what it is now, then what kind of society do we want? And once we dream it up, we have to love that particular society, that particular destination that we want to reach. And that love for that destination has to be greater than the hate we have for the status quo. And I think that as young people, the biggest challenge confronting us is not necessarily to be angry at the status quo. Yes, it is important, because what we have in Ghana currently, and in fact in Africa largely, is appalling. It's appalling. I usually ask that we require generational accountability. And what do I mean by that? The first, the generation that was born between the late 19th century to the early 20th century, that was a generation that fought for continent to regain its independence. So the Nkrumahs, the Dankwas, the Julius Nyereres, the Awolowos, the Kenneth Kaunda, these were the people who fought for our independence. But the generation that took after them, there is nothing absolute, there is nothing very concrete for me to point to and say that this is what they achieved. And this generation which won our independence, even if they didn't do anything, for the sake of argument, let's even say that they didn't do anything after us. But trust me, regaining our independence for us alone, it was something very concrete that they did. Because what's your worth if you cannot preside over your own affairs? If you are told that some other people have to come and rule over you, so you live and die a subject of others. So being able to make sure that colonialism was, chased away, it was something very concrete. But the generation that took after them, I cannot point to anything, concrete. And yet our generation is supposed to contend with this. It's supposed to be satisfied. Our generation, the generation of young people today, we are supposed to be satisfied with what has been given us. And I say no, we shouldn't be satisfied. And we must never be satisfied until we have a system that allows for people to be able to harness their own potential. Until we have a system that allows people to access education from primary school to university without any hindrance. Until we have a system that pregnant women do not have to contend with bare floors in our hospitals. Until we have a system where the health system doesn't prioritize money over people's health care. We must not be satisfied until we have a system where people's lives are more prior than the luxuries of life. We must never be satisfied until we have a system where the luxuries of the few are not prioritized over the necessities of all. We will not be satisfied with mediocrity. We will not be satisfied with the most basic of things. No. We want more and we deserve more. And so we are not satisfied and we are angry at the status quo. Maybe not angry enough. Maybe not angry enough. And trust me, there is a lot of work that needs to be done to awaken our minds to the realities. There's a lot of work that has to be done. As a member of the Economic Fighters League, this is the work we've been doing. But it is a challenging work because there are so many people who seem content. Content with the current situation. So there's a lot of work that has to be done. But again, we have to move beyond just being upset or angry at the current system to dreaming up the kind of system that we want. And turning our hate for the current system into actionable steps that we can take in order to reach the destination that we so love. And this is the great challenge for our generation. But how do we reach this kind of destination that we want? As I said earlier, change doesn't just happen. Change is made to happen. So that brings me to the point about action. Change happens by action. Change doesn't just come by itself. Change happens by action. And deliberate action, if you want a change that doesn't happen by accident. Because in fact, change that happens by accident means that people do not have control over it. We do not have control over that kind of change. And it could be something that actually is worse than we currently have. Even though some people believe that nothing can be worse. So we have to have deliberate actions that we will take in order to send us to the kind of destination that we want. And if I may make bold to say that without action, we will be here complaining and whining and just, being angry until we die off, or until we also become an older generation and our children will have to contend with so much worse than the situation that we have. And that is why at the Economic Fighters League, we have taken it upon ourselves to mobilize young people in this country to seek for a better system, to look for ways that we can bring our energies and our skills together to make sure that things don't happen to us, but we make things happen for ourselves. If we want a better future, we have to build it. And there are systems that are preventing us from achieving economic freedom in this country, and in fact in Africa as a continent. We have to demolish those systems, and we have to demolish them deliberately, and we have to have something to replace those systems. And without demolishing them, we are virtually saying that it is okay to live in a system that doesn't care about us, to live in a system that sees our lives as just one of the many. And even if you die, the system doesn't care. Sure, we will face perils. I have faced police arrests, and I have had a rubber bullet shot at me. These perils are a small price to pay for the greater good that will come if we succeed with our action. And we, as young people, must always be able to sacrifice for the greater good that will come. For surely there will be a greater good. There will surely be a greater good. We will be able to have a system where we have control of our resources, where we have control of our economy, where we have control over everything that happens to us, where our gold and our oil and all that we have is not taken away and only crumbs left for us. We will have a better system in our lifetime where people do not have to sleep on the streets. We will have a better system in our lifetime where people do not have to wake up in the morning and are not sure where they will get their breakfast from. We will have a better system in our lifetime where people do not have to wake up in the morning and they are not sure what to do because they don't even have the energy to do what they need to do in order to survive. We will have a better system where people are not seen as slaves in their own country, where people's lives mean something for the society. We will have this better society, and we will have it in our lifetime, but it will not come by wishing. It will come by action. And the challenge for us is to make sure that this action is coordinated, this action is mobilized, this action is harnessed by us in order to make sure that the future that we crave for happens, and it happens in our lifetime. Life must not happen to us. We must live life to the fullest of it. Thank you very much for having me.